Hi, my name is Kelly. Welcome back to Unpacking the Trunk Costumes. It's been a while, I know, and life has happened and happens and is happening, but that's okay. I'm here and I'm glad you are too. So I'm going to be putting a video up on Costube Symposium 2021, which is a free event online on YouTube. It's going to be running from Thursday the 19th of August until Sunday the 22nd of August. My video goes live on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. As part of that, I wanted to participate in the Costube 21 questions because it's 2021, and I thought, why not get a chance to get to know me a little bit better, and we'll have a little bit of fun and make something while we're doing it. And so I show you what I'm making. I went to an estate sale, and the person at the estate sale was selling all these little packets, and the packets were like this, and they had two kinds of fabric in them, and what they are shopping totes. And here in Oregon, like in many parts of the country, you get charged money if you get a shopping bag at the store, you know, like one of the plastic ones. So it's really good to have our own, and this one was my favorite. The two fabrics were dog paw prints and dogs. The kit came with those two fabrics. The instructions are actually on the inside of the label. Such a good idea. And it came with some webbing, which actually didn't come with the kit, but the person who had done it had bought some, so I've got it. And I thought I'd work on that while I talk to you about the 21 questions. So here we go. I've made a couple of these tote bags before, and each one is 21 inches wide already. And if you cut them right down the middle, they're 42 inches, so a width of fabric. And if you cut them right smack down the middle, then you've got your two pieces. So there's two, you cut two pieces of the outside and two pieces of the inside for the tote bag. So I'm gonna go for it. And first I'll answer this question. Machine sewing, barefoot, socks, or shoes on the pedal? Shoes, for safety's sake. And also, I don't like the feel of my foot or my socked foot on a pedal. Also, my sewing room is generally a mess, and there are pins on the floor and sharp, ouchy things. I don't want to get those things stuck in my feet, so shoes. This tote bag making thing is not an exact science. You can make it as small or as large as you want. The first time I made it, I was absolutely fretting over getting it exactly 21 inches exactly. And if that is what you want to do, then go for it. But honestly, having made two of these now, it's just not that big of a deal. The main idea is to have both of the pieces about the same size. I just ironed a crease in the fold of the fabric. I folded the fabric in half, and I'm just making a nice nifty cut. Do you put your pins in parallel to the seam line you're sewing, or do you do perpendicular? I was taught to do perpendicular. If it's a super long seam, like, you know, like on a skirt or something like that, I'll put them in parallel, just, you know, especially if the fabric is slippy or something like that. So yeah, I'll put them in typically perpendicular, hard word there. Otherwise, if it's a long seam, it'll be straight down the seam. I got them all sewed up. While I answer the next question, I'm going to press my stitching. I think I mentioned this in my videos before, and it's a quilter's thing I learned making quilts, is that whenever you sew a seam, even just a plain old boring seam like this, press it. It helps the fibers of the fabric and the thread to kind of settle into each other. So the next question is, oh, this is a good question. Tea, coffee, or chocolate? Well, I like tea, but I tend to drink a whole lot more coffee. I would like to have dark chocolate with my coffee to eat, but I don't do that. But my favorite coffee of all time is when I get up in Alaska, I go to Kaladi Brothers and I pick up their coffee. Oh, my absolute favorite. On to the next step, which is to cut a 3-inch square out of the sewn corners of each of the outer and the inner. I can't measure and cut and talk at the same time, so I'll be right back. So before I go to the next question, I want to show you the next step because it could be confusing. Once you get it once, it'll totally make sense. I've cut the 3-inch square out of the corner, okay? Then you want to open it up, whoop, like that, open it up, and you match those 2 seams. So the bottom seam and the side seam, you want to just match them right together, and that creates a new seam that you're going to sew. I get nervous, and so I'm going to do my perpendicular pins, and you will sew right across there. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a kind of a square bottom for your bag. Let me show you again. There's the 3-inch cutout. Okay, I opened it up. I'm going to pull it open, and I'm going to match the 2 seams, the bottom and the side together, and I'm going to stick a pin right through there, and I'm using 1/2-inch seams. I'm literally going to sew whoop right across there. Okay, so while I get this other one ready, I'll answer another question. What do you like to watch or listen to while sewing? Well, other Costubers, of course. I have so many subscriptions to so many Costube accounts, and you should too. I also like other YouTube channels. No, I do. A couple of my favorites to watch are Simple Living Alaska. That's where I'm from, Alaska originally. And they have a wonderful channel where they live a lot off the land, and they live in a dry cabin. I believe it's outside of Willow somewhere. And they have a beautiful garden and a little cabin, and they go fishing and they do different things, and they show you how they do everything, how they're managing to live off the land. So I really recommend Simple Living Alaska. I also like watching some of the travel shows like Kara and Nate, Endless Adventure, Kinging It's one of my all-time favorites. And I also like watching shows that are on PBS, the Public Broadcasting System. So they have all kinds of really interesting shows, lots of DIY, lots of sewing, painting, different kinds of things like that. But I do like watching the Smithsonian Channel, and I like shows like Barnwood Builders, one of my favorite shows. Okay, so now that I've told you all about that, I am going to go sew these, and I'll be right back. Ta-da! There. I sewed it right across the bottom, and I'll show you kind of what it's doing here. It's making a square bottom on the bag, which I think is just such a cool idea. Anyway, while I answer the next question, I'm going to press these because that's what I do. Do you have any sewing assistants or pets? Why, yes I do, and they've been in my videos before. I have Gracie. Gracie has been with me since 2008. So she's seen an awful lot of my life changes and has been with me the whole time. She is definitely a senior dog, but she's also definitely a spunky dog. So she is spunky and loud and funny, and so I look forward to every day with her, and I'm thankful for every minute I have with her. 4 years ago, I got a hold of the people who we got Gracie from and just wanted to tell them how much we loved her and everything. And he said, well, Gracie's mom had a surprise litter. This is at the point where Gracie's mom was 10. And he said, are you interested? And I said, yes, please. My other sewing assistant is Gracie's half-sister, Maisie. Maisie has also been seen in my videos. And finally, about 2.5 years ago, we lost my sweet Airedale Elliot. And very shortly afterwards, literally I think within 2 or 3 days of him passing away, Barnaby was born. And I had been following an Airedale Terrier page on Facebook and got in touch with the owner of the page and the owner of the Airedales. I told him what had happened, and we ended up getting Barnaby from a wonderful man in San Diego. Those are my 3 helpers. It says to turn the outer bag right side out. It's so cute. Oh my goodness, look at that. That's so cute. All right, then I believe I get into the webbing portion of the show. Okay, next question, since I've got this part down. Who do you look up to, or who taught you your crafts? Mom. My mom did. Mom was always making clothes for us. She made a lot of our toys for us that we still have, of course. She is still sewing. She sews for my nieces. She sews them beautiful nightgowns and dresses and things like that. Of course, it's nice to have someone young to sew for. You know, she didn't teach me to make things perfectly, but she taught me to enjoy what I was doing while I did it. At her house a few months back, and while I was there, I made something and she was making something too. It was so much fun. I just remember watching her pick out the patterns at the sewing store, which was called Three Sisters back in Anchorage. If any old Anchorage peeps would know that place. And I remember her cutting out the patterns. I remember her sitting at her sewing machine and watching the gear go round and round. It was always so fascinating too. My mom and also her sister, my Aunt Patty, she's amazing. She is an incredibly talented seamstress. I think their mom both taught them how to sew on a treadle sewing machine back in the day. So I'm really thankful for those people. The next step is to baste these in place. So I'm going to get out some needle and thread and then I'll be right back. I'm going to baste this in place, and while I do that, I will tell you the answer to question, what project taught you the most? I had major foot surgery a few years back, and I had just watched Morgan Donner's video on how to make a medieval kirtle by hand, and I measured out the fabric and everything and the lining, and I cut everything out before the surgery. And then I went and had the surgery, and I had to sit a lot. And while I sat and healed, I sewed that together entirely by hand. And it taught me a lot of patience. It just taught me that, you know, enjoy the process and don't feel like you need to rush through it just to get it done. Just enjoy the process. And I did. I even hand sewed the eyelets. And if I can find a picture of that, I will post it here for you to see. It was a really great project. I have not even had a chance to wear it yet, but I will, and when I do, I will post a picture on Instagram for you to see. Meanwhile, let's do another one. The question is drape, draft, or commercial pattern. So I'm at the point now in my sewing experience where I kind of do both. I always recommend starting with a commercial pattern. There are really great things that you can learn from them, especially if you're starting out. I'm at the point now where I will look at a commercial pattern and I'll go, that's a good starting point, but I don't like this, that, the other thing, and I'll just kind of make up. I'll use the pattern as sort of a base for shapes, and then I'll add to it whatever I think is what I'm after. That is how I made a project recently where I used the top of the pattern, and then I had stuff in my stash I wanted to use, and so I just kind of draped it on my dress form, which I have a bootstrap pattern dress form. So I just kind of used her as a base, and I made this really awesome dress. And so yeah, I do both. I do both at this point. Are you team cut or team trace? I'm team trace. I was team cut for a really long time until I started collecting old patterns. and I found myself getting super frustrated because there were pieces missing and it was only cut to one size. So I put the dark bag, the outside, into the light side so that the right sides are facing, and I'm matching up the side seams, and I'm going to pin it in place perpendicular. I like to trace them because a lot of times I will have to make adjustments anyway, especially for things like arms and bust and hips, that kind of thing. And so I like to make those changes on my trace pattern instead of making them to the pattern itself. I'm not gonna be around forever, and I'd like to be able to pass on my patterns to somebody else who might also have that frustration, like, oh, she cut everything out. So yeah, pins or pattern weights. I use pins. Pins. I don't use pattern weights, partly because I'm super messy in my sewing room sometime, and I would not be able to find them probably part of the time. And I have this big old magnet thing for my pins, which I love. I am much safer, even though their pins still end up on the floor. I'm much safer with pins in a magnetic pin cushion than with pattern weights. I am almost done pinning. I'm going to go sew this and then I'll be right back. So I'm really glad this happened because I goobered and I forgot to do something, which was to leave a hole in the bottom of the inner bag so that I could turn it right side out. Wah! Don't do that. Leave a hole in the bottom of the inner bag. Otherwise you have to get out your handy seam ripper and seam rip it like I'm doing, but that's okay because I'm glad that you saw that I did that. And meanwhile, I'm going to answer a question, which is, what is the most unconventional material you have used? Well, I made a bodice for a dress, like a fantasy, like a costuming kind of dress, out of wired ribbon. And the ribbon was sparkly and it was glittery and it was messy. But what I did was I sort of made a bodice shape on my dress form, and then I took the ribbon and pinned it in place so that it kind of went in at an angle. Like, it was weird and a little dangerous. I think I remember breaking a few needles doing it. I am ripping this open. Let's do another question. Which era or genre would you still like to make a costume of? Well, my ancestors came to Oregon in the late 1840s, early 1850s. My maternal ancestors did. And so I always wanted to make whatever a woman who would have come over on the trail, I want to make something that they would have worn. Like an late 1840s, early 1850s type dress, but one that would have withstood the trip and wouldn't have been a pain with hoops. So I'm thinking a corded petticoat maybe to help hold the skirts out, cotton calico, something sturdy. Oh, it's so cute. So really, other than sewing up the hole that I had to make to turn the bag right side out, pressing and top stitching around the top will be just about done. So I'm going to go ahead, and since the inside of this bag isn't going to show, I'm going to do a quick little seam across there to hold it steady. Another thing I want you to know that I did when I sewed the two bags together, I went back and forth over where the handles are. I went over and over and over and over and over and over and over, probably 4 times, because that part of the bag is going to get a ton of stress. I just thought that was probably the best idea. I'm going to go run to the sewing machine and sew this close. I'll be right back. You guys, look at this. A tote bag with dogs. It's so darn cute. Best sewing tool you ever invested in. I didn't invest in it. Oops. My husband did. It is called, not sponsored of course, the Pink Power Cordless Electric Scissors. I have some pretty decent arthritis in my hands, and I had the carpal tunnel surgery done, and when I did that I couldn't use scissors for a while because it was too painful. So my husband got me these. You guys, Well, the battery pack's not in it right now, it's being charged. These are the best ever. They are loud, really loud when you use them, but yeah, I love them. This set comes with 2 blades, and one's for fabric and one's for heavy duty, like, you know, like cardboard and stuff, which is great because I recently used that when I bolted all my fabric. So I cut up a big Home Depot moving box with those, and it took no time at all, so much quicker than using an X-Acto knife. And then I actually labeled them. I don't know if you can see there, and it says FB. So I know that's the fabric scissor, and then the other ones are these. And they literally slip right in, and then the battery pack just pops in the back, and you slide this up to turn it on. You want to be careful. These are fast, and they're sharp, and they're loud. Thank you, Andy, my dear husband, for investing in those for me when my hands are too painful to cut things. What is your dream event or photo shoot opportunity? My dream event would be to go to costume college one day. Yes, and I will. It'll happen, and I will be there, and I can't wait to meet as many of you as I possibly can. The other thing is that I don't know if any of you saw one of my original YouTube videos, and it was about my Klondike project. I would love to finish an entire outfit, and then I would like to go walk the Chilkoot Trail in costume. And during that, I would like to film it and make sort of a documentary out of it and put it on this channel. And even if I didn't do the whole trail, I would at least get to the base of Chilkoot Mountain, where the picture that I based my whole costume. So that would be an opportunity I would love. Which of your projects are you the proudest of? Probably my white dress. This was the one I was telling you about before, where I started with the base of a pattern, and then what I had was dust ruffles that I bought it at an estate sale. They had like 3 or 4 sets of dust ruffles, and so I bought all of the sets. I took them apart, and I used all of that fabric from the dust ruffles to make this dress. So I haven't even had a chance to wear it yet, but it's so cute. When I have the opportunity, I will definitely take pictures of it and show it to you. I'm going to answer the last 3 questions. How has the pandemic changed how you sew or your craft? I would say that during the pandemic, I relied on my stash that I was growing more than I ever have before. It was so easy, you know, before the pandemic to just go to Joann's or order some fabric. And then all of a sudden that was taken away from me. And even when the stores partially opened up, I just didn't want to go. So I found my fabrics from the estate sales that I had gone to, and I just made do. And I'm so glad I did, because it was a huge lesson learned about how to not just keep frivolously buying stuff that I don't need, and really rely on my own creativity and the things that I have. 2 more questions. What did you learn in the past year that you are most proud of? It's not a thing. I would say patience. And I would say patience because I know myself well enough to know that I'll get frustrated if something isn't turning out just right, and it'll end up in a UFO pile. During the past year, I am most proud of the fact that I am not afraid to say, stop, take a breath, step back, reevaluate, take out that sleeve, put it back in, do it right. I'm kind of done with just cutting corners and making things work. I want to do them right now, really right. I know how to do it right. And if I don't, I have an enormous community of wonderful people who can teach me how to do things right. So I have no excuses. And so patience. Patience is the one thing that I have really worked on this year, and that I'm really proud of, because it's really paying off. And it's worth it in a whole lot of other ways than sewing. And finally, the last question, what is the most useless tool you have ever invested in? It didn't cost that much. I think it was 20 bucks. And it has potential. I mean, it really does have potential. It's this thing. I bought it at my favorite sewing store in the whole world, which is Seams, S-E-A-M-S, Seems Like Home in Anchorage, Alaska. So what it is it's a cup holder and a little garbage can that you are supposed to keep like on the side of your sewing table so that you have a place to put your scraps, and you clamp it in, you know, like this to your sewing table, and then you turn the crank and it gets it in there. You put your coffee cup right there, you know, coffee, tea, whatever, right there, your soda, and then you put the little garbage in here and you're good to go, you know. And it even has like little pockets here in the front. Super cool thing. Can you see how far that sticks out from your table? Yeah, so two problems for this with me is, one, it sticks way out from my table when I can get it on there. My table is an old office desk and it's literally slanted like this on the bottom, so getting it on there is a challenge. The other thing is, because it sticks so far out, I run into it all the time. There's got to be a potential better way to do this, and maybe someday if I move, I will have a different setup and I'll have a different way to use this. I am not going to get rid of it, but right now it's useless to me. It's made by Gypsy Quilter. The Gypsy Quilter is the name on the logo. So anyway, folks, that is the last of my 21 questions. I finished my cute, incredibly cute dog tote bag. It's got its little square bottom on it. It was so simple to make. I encourage you to just, you know, like I said, this is not a rocket science project. It's not an exact project. It's a great beginner one. Use whatever two parts of, you know, sizes of fabric you want and go for it. And the ones I made before, the straps, I didn't want to buy it at the store. I actually used straps that I had found in an estate sale from someone who did a lot of camping. So they had a lot of those straps that they did with used to tie up things onto their backpack. I used those. They're same stuff. I just used them, reused them. Please watch Costube Symposium August 19th through the 22nd. Please watch my video on Saturday the 21st at 9:30, Unpacking the Trunk Costumes. It is called, it's a costume that's an Edwardian costume that's based on the book and series The Flame Trees of Thika, Memories of an African Childhood by Elspeth Huxley. That's not the whole title of my video, but that's basically the title. I hope to see you there. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.